Okay, so you want to own a fish farm. Buy the land, stock the ponds, sell the harvest, watch the checks roll in. That's the plan in your head. And unlike a lot of what we cover on this channel, it's a plan that actually works for some people. Here's the catch. A fish farm is not a pond with fish in it. It is a water-dependent protein factory with delayed inventory, biological risk, and very real profit potential if, and only if, you control your water, your balance sheet, and your buyer. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what it takes to make a fish farm profitable and whether you're the kind of owner who can pull it off. Let's start with what it actually costs to get in. The first thing you buy is not fish. It is physics, water flow, temperature stability, dissolved oxygen, backup power, drainage, effluent compliance, a site that can move enough clean water every day through a living inventory that cannot pause for weekends. That is not a cute pond behind the house. That is infrastructure disguised as scenery. And the capital spread is absurdly wide. If nature already built your unfair advantage, cold spring water, gravity flow, usable ponds, your entry ticket can look survivable. Miss that natural spring, and now you are buying pumps, filters, oxygen systems, chillers, generators, plumbing, buildings, and failure points. The viewer fantasy budgets, tanks, fingerlings, and feed. It forgets the invisible line items, permits, water testing, liability insurance, predator control, refrigeration, shipping, processing, waste disposal, compliance. 1 year of delay can feel like one mortgage. 3 years can feel like 2 lives. That is the first trap. It is not startup cost. It is startup time. Fish take months or years to become revenue. Bills take 30 days. That gap is the business, not the pond, not the species, the gap. This is where most imaginary fish farms die. You can survive a scary budget. What you cannot survive is a dead zone between stocking and selling. Feed gets paid before revenue arrives. Utilities get paid before revenue arrives. Labor gets paid before revenue arrives. Repairs get paid before revenue arrives. And at the end of all that, you are still looking at feed, labor, freight, juvenile stock, and utilities before a single fish turns into cash. And you haven't sold a single fillet yet. You did not buy a pastoral lifestyle. You bought a conversion engine. Water goes in, feed goes in, juvenile fish go in, labor, electricity, maintenance, and mortality go in. And after a long, expensive delay, marketable biomass comes out if the biology cooperates. Distinction matters because it changes your entire mental model. If you think you own some fish, you'll behave like a caretaker. If you understand you own a perishable manufacturing process strapped to live animals and hydrology, you'll behave like an operator. That is closer to the truth. A fish farm is also not one business. It is usually one of 3. A commodity pond business, where you sell into a market that sets the price for you. A capital-heavy recirculating system, where engineering and debt sit on top of biology. Or a premium niche farm, where you try to escape commodity pricing by selling rarity, freshness, traceability, or direct relationships. Short version. If you cannot answer who sets your price, you do not yet know what business you bought. Now you follow the money. And the first number that punches you in the face is feed. Feed is not a side expense. It is the engine swallowing diesel. Then comes juvenile stock or eggs, then labor, then harvesting and processing, then shipping, which is where the premium dream starts looking less cinematic. This is the part people underestimate. A fish farm can look profitable from far away because the sales number sounds good. But once you unpack the cost structure, the romance drains out fast. Freight can be huge. Processing can be huge. Labor can be huge. Stocking can be huge. Packaging, maintenance, compliance, loss, and owner salary all take their turn. The business can work. But it works as an audited machine, not a rustic postcard. Here is the inversion. You would think the margin lives with the farmer because the farmer does the hard part. Usually, it doesn't. The farmer is often the price taker. The processor, distributor, brand, or restaurant often has far more room to defend its margin than you do. That is the mechanism surprise. You can do the biology right and still lose because someone else owns the market interface. The fish is not the moat. The route to the buyer is. If you sell undifferentiated fish into a commodity channel, you carry the mortality and someone else captures the markup. If you sell a differentiated product to a buyer who cares about flavor, freshness, story, or logistics, now you have a chance. Not safety, a chance. Because even when the machine is running, the business bleeds from edges you do not fully control. Disease, oxygen crashes, pump failures, storms, power outages, water temperature swings. A single biosecurity mistake, a week of transport disruption, a buyer that disappears in restaurant seasonality, a drought that turns your water source from an asset into a countdown. Aquaculture is emotionally deceptive. Growth looks continuous. Risk is lumpy. For months, the fish look fine. Then one bad event converts a season into ash. You are not farming fillets. You are farming variance. That is what makes the business psychologically hard to read. The ponds can look peaceful while the economics are violent. A calm surface tells you almost nothing. The money is moving underneath, in feed conversion, mortality, downgraded fish, energy use, labor intensity, and price realization. A bad week at the wrong time can ruin a year. A power outage during a critical window does not care how passionate you are. Warm water does not respect your business plan. A disease event does not negotiate with your debt schedule. And if you finance too aggressively, a merely mediocre year can be enough to break you. Take Johan Andreassen. This is not the story of a fool. It is the story of a competent operator building exactly the kind of fish farm the future was supposed to want. Andreassen helped build Atlantic Sapphire on a clean thesis: produce salmon on land near the U.S. market, avoid the ocean's parasites and logistics, cut air freight, and industrialize a cleaner protein system. On paper, this is what discipline looks like: a defined thesis, enormous market demand, modern systems, serious operators, a product people already buy at scale. Then the structure began to speak. The problem was not that the idea sounded silly. The problem was that the idea was expensive enough to demand near-industrial perfection before the economics could forgive ordinary biological instability. That is a brutal setup. By the time Atlantic Sapphire had pushed deep into its Florida project, the company had spent extraordinary sums pursuing a system that still needed more scale to make the long-term return logic work. But scale did not simplify the biology. It amplified the consequences of every biological wobble before the margin structure was strong enough to absorb them. The result was the nightmare version of modern farming economics: huge capital, real technical ambition, a real market, and still, losses so large they dwarf the revenue. This is what people mean when they say some farm businesses are structurally fragile. They do not mean the owners are lazy. They mean the business has no room for ordinary imperfection. The answer is not personal incompetence. The answer is structural. If your fish need industrial perfection to justify industrial capital, then a merely good year is not good enough. Now the counterweight: Ty Walker. In 2019, Walker moved his family to an abandoned trout hatchery in Newcastle, Virginia. This was not tech. This was brush clearing, pipe excavation, grocery store side jobs, and a limestone spring doing the one thing money struggles to fake: delivering a huge, continuous volume of cold, clean water. The property was small. The advantage was not. And that matters, because most profitable fish farms do not win by doing everything. They win by starting with one unfair thing already true. Walker's unfair thing was water. It still took years before the business looked real. 1 year to clean and restore the site. 1 year to learn by expensive failure. 1 year to navigate processing approvals. During that stretch, the family lived in the kind of financial tension that makes most people quit. Savings drained. Mistakes cost real money. The farm was not paying them enough to be the only source of income. That part is important. The success case is not a fairy tale. It is a delayed payoff. But here is what he did differently. He did not build for commodity throughput. He built for price. He sold a premium product into high-end restaurants. He used a gravity-fed system that kept infrastructure lighter than a fully engineered recirculating model. He stayed out of the debt spiral. He added direct-to-consumer sales. He processed locally. And when he realized he was underpricing the fish, he raised prices instead of pretending volume would save him. Painful. Necessary. That is the real success move in this business, not optimism. Repricing. Once the operation was established, it reportedly reached about $1.1 million in annual revenue, about $218,000 in profit, and roughly a 20% margin. The farm carried tens of thousands of trout at a time, supplied hundreds of restaurants and gourmet outlets, and sold most of its production fresh into buyers who actually cared about the difference. That is not hobby money. That is a real farm business. And it did not happen because fish farming is secretly easy. It happened because Walker built around structural advantages that changed the math: natural water, premium buyers, differentiated product, low leverage, multiple channels, enough stubbornness to survive the dead years before the live years. That is the part people miss. Fish farming can work. It just usually works as a specialized business with a structural edge, not as a generic dream. So what separated the cautionary case from the success case? Not intelligence, not work ethic, not love of fish, pricing power. Andreassen built toward industrial scale and hoped margin would emerge once capacity was large enough. Walker found buyers willing to pay for differentiated fish and then scaled within that protected lane. Debt amplified the difference, yes. Biology amplified the difference, yes. But the crux was still this. One farm needed the market to forgive its costs. The other made the market respect them. That is the single most important sentence in this episode. If your buyer can replace you with generic fish next week, you are operating a biology-heavy commodity business. If your buyer believes your water, freshness, traceability, or product quality is materially different, now you may have room to price for survival. Now you calculate. Use the transparent premium farm logic because it reveals the real threshold. Let's say your fish farm reaches around $1.1 million in annual sales and keeps about $218,000 in profit after all major costs. That means every $100 in sales leaves you with roughly $20 before the next surprise arrives. Healthy, by farm standards. Still fragile. Here's what that means in household language. A 10% revenue hit erases about half your annual profit. One disease event. One freight spike. One restaurant cluster pulling back. One water problem at the wrong moment. Half your cushion is gone. A 20% revenue hit can turn a good business into a losing one. That is why volume alone is not the answer. Small farms often die from looking busy without actually clearing enough sales to support a human life attached to them. If your fish farm cannot realistically generate several $100,000 a year, it probably cannot support even one modest full-time household without outside income. Below that, you may have a lifestyle project. Maybe a beautiful one. Still not the same thing as a durable business. Time matters as much as margin. A first harvest is not a break-even point. It is the start of the argument. Real break-even is the moment the farm can pay for biology, overhead, owner labor, and one bad surprise without asking another job, another loan, or another savings account to rescue it. That date is later than most people think. Now run the same fish farm forward. First, the good year. You have premium buyers. Water behaves. Mortality stays boring. Freight is expensive but manageable. Your annual sales land around $1.1 million. Your major costs. Freight, processing, labor, stock, feed, packaging, overhead, maintenance, compliance, and owner salary. Consume most of it, but not all of it. You finish with around $218,000 in profit. That is real money. Not Silicon Valley money, not fantasy money, farm money. Hard, defensible, respectable money. On the right 4 acres, with the right water, with the right buyers, that can be a genuinely good business. Now, the bad year. Not apocalypse, just bad. A warm water event slows growth. A portion of fish downgrade. A few key restaurant accounts cut orders. Revenue falls 20%. Feed drops a little because fewer fish finish well. Packaging drops a little. Freight softens, but not as much as you hoped because routes and boxes do not scale down gracefully. Labor barely moves because live animals still need care every day. Maintenance rises because bad years are needy years, and now you lose money. Maybe not by an absurd amount, maybe by $20,000, maybe 40, maybe 60. But the lesson is the same. Good farms do not fail only in biblical disasters. They fail in ordinary bad seasons when fixed costs stay upright and biological performance bends the wrong way. That is why the romantic line, "I'll just work harder," does not solve the problem. Hard work can reduce waste. It cannot repeal oxygen demand. It cannot cool hot water. It cannot force a buyer to pay a premium for a generic fish. So, should you own a fish farm? Yes, under a narrow set of conditions. Go if you have an unfair water advantage, or inherited infrastructure, or land whose hydrology removes a giant chunk of your capital cost. Go if you already know your buyer before you stock your fish. Go if that buyer values something the commodity market does not. Freshness, species, traceability, story, year-round supply, location, smoking, processing, or chef-level quality. Go if you can survive at least 3 to 5 lean years without the farm needing to feed your household immediately. Go if you can stay lightly leveraged, or ideally unleveraged, so one bad cycle does not hand the business to the bank. That is the best profile owner. Inherited land advantage, off-farm cash flow during the build, and a premium direct sales channel. Conditional go for a full-time primary operator if you can combine all 3. Reliable water, disciplined capital, and pricing power. Miss one, and the business gets mean fast. No-go if your plan depends on borrowed money paying for complex water systems before you have proven demand. No-go if you intend to sell generic fish into a market where someone else sets the price. No-go if you need the farm to replace a stable salary immediately. No-go if you are drawn to the animals, but indifferent to spreadsheets. In commodity aquaculture, sentiment is not a control system. And for the part-time supplemental income dream, usually no. Unless the operation is very intentionally niche, small, and direct market. More specialty food business than commodity farm. The biology does not care that you are busy on weekdays. This is what makes fish farming one of the rare farm businesses that can be both genuinely profitable and brutally unforgiving. It is not a scam. It is not a guaranteed win. It is a real business with real upside that appears only when structure, biology, timing, and market position line up at the same time. That is rarer than the internet makes it look. The calmest-looking farm in the county may be one pump failure away from panic. The ugliest old hatchery may be a gold mine if the water is right and the buyers are loyal. The outside image tells you almost nothing. The economics tell you everything, and the economics are cold. A fish farm does not care how long you dreamed about it. It cares whether your water is consistent, whether your fish survive, whether your cost of production makes sense, whether your buyer pays enough, and whether your household can survive the delay between faith and cash flow. That is the whole game. You do not make money because you raise fish. You make money because you control the water, survive the delay, and sell the harvest to someone who cannot afford to treat it like everybody else's.